All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Allie Lewis, coordinator with the Vermont Ag Water Quality Partnership. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Lunch and Learn webinar series. We're really excited to welcome John Wright. He is the manager of the Northeastern Regional Office with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. Here to talk with us today about the Northeast Forest and Rivers Fund. And as a friendly reminder about the partnership, the partnership has 9 organizations that are formally a part of it. That's not to say those are all the organizations we work with, but as part of our Vermont Ag Water Quality Partnership, we have the Natural Resource Conservation Service, the Farm Service Agency, the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources Department of Environmental Conservation. We have the Lake Champlain Basin Program, UVM Extension, Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, and the Fish and Wildlife Service. And I feel like I'm blanking on somebody. Oh, of course, the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts and the Natural Resource Conservation Districts. And we have a vision that Vermont will be populated by farms that are vibrant, robust, and sustainable, and that they steward their land to improve water quality and wildlife habitat for the benefit of farms, connected ecosystems, the public, and general good of Vermont. And our purpose and mission in collaborating is that we will improve agricultural water quality in Vermont by coordinating our partner efforts to provide education, technical, and financial assistance to the farming community. And there are 3 overarching goals that we have. The first is to improve ag water quality and wildlife habitat on all engaged farmland owner or operators' properties. That will deliver technical and financial assistance in an effective and efficient way, and in doing so, provide the best service experience possible for the landowner. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, John. Thank you so much. You're muted.
Yeah. Can you still see my screen, or do I need to reshare?
You'll have to reshare.
Yeah.
Sorry, I took it from you earlier.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. So, all right.
Looks great. Thank you.
Okay. So, yes, my name is John Wright. I'm manager for our Northeastern region here at NFWF, which, I mean, the whole region is essentially Maine to Virginia. But I concentrate on New England, and then also we're working in parts of New York these days to capture some of the other priorities. And so I'm responsible for the Northeast Forest and Rivers Fund. And we'll go from there. So just quickly, these are the folks. Amanda Basso is the regional director. And then I'm the manager, and then we have a program coordinator, Victoria, who works on the program also. And then I'm just going to talk quickly about NFWF for anyone who's not familiar with us. So we were chartered by Congress in 1984. We are an independent nonprofit foundation. We have a board, 30 or so people, including the Fish and Wildlife Service director and the NOAA administrator. And so our overall mission is sustain, restore, and enhance wildlife, and also bringing collaboration between agencies and the private sector. We leverage public funding with private money. And this is important. So we're an implementer. We fund projects. We're not an advocacy organization. We don't do lobbying, anything like that. So, and those things are not eligible for funding. And briefly, so we have a number of non-federal partners, foundations, corporations, states, private donors, and then federal partners, which are pretty much all the agencies with some conservation aspect to them. So we get directly appropriated dollars from agencies, but also we sign cooperative agreements with agencies. And then the whole idea is to, us being a kind of neutral convener of all this funding and then putting it all out on the ground. And, we have a heavy focus on private lands because that's where a lot of the conservation opportunity is. That's voluntary conservation. And also we're interested in, creating economic opportunities through some of the programs. Then just quickly, this is kind of our most recent. So we've given away about $8 billion over the last this is our 40th anniversary year, but through 2022, about 8 billion, almost 22,000 organizations, and projects supported. And then you can see over time, we've kind of, things have been bumped up and right now, seeing a lot of federal money. So here's just a map of, where we've funded. You can see it is nationwide, and the territories like Puerto Rico. You can see in the Northeast, we have some pretty heavy investment. We have a number of programs, the Chesapeake Bay Stewardship Fund, Delaware River Restoration Fund, Long Island Sound Futures Fund, my program. And so there's a lot going on in the Northeast. So I'll specifically just start talking about the Northeast Forests and Rivers Fund, which until I guess it was last year, we'd called the New England Forests and Rivers Fund, but we did a little bit of expansion to include Eastern New York after some of the priorities. So the program is, this will be the 9th year, and we restore and sustain healthy forests and rivers that provide habitat for native bird and freshwater fish populations. We have this new 10-year conservation investment strategy called a business plan. That was approved in March 23, and I can tell you can find those business plans on our website, and I would encourage you to look at them because this one, the one for this program, is called the Northeast Watersheds Business Plan, and it incorporates 2 different programs and strategies and goals. And over time, we've funded 93 projects through this program. About 12.2 million dollars in total funding. And then, so this is just a brief out of the business plan. And if you are on our website, nifwif.org, you can go under, there's a heading called Strategy and Results, and you'll see all the business plans listed there. And so this is the geography of the business plan. So the Long Island Sound Futures Fund covers some of those that are in the coastal boundary in New York and Connecticut, but then also the Connecticut River Watershed is also part of that program. So we try to leverage both of those to find good investments. I'll stop. Any questions?
I've got some questions, but I'll wait. But I'm hoping to hear about
Okay.
some of the different projects that
Yeah.
have been funded in the past.
Yep. Okay. So and this is an overview of our Northeast landscape. We actually have we have other programs also in the area. This new America the Beautiful Challenge, um, and then the National Coastal Resilience Fund. And so all of those kind of feed into the overall business plan. Come on. All right. So, and in the business plan, just quickly, these are kind of species we've identified as important for conservation, ones in need, where we can, we think we can measure results and changes in population over time. We kind of, in the business plan, there's kind of three. So coastal habitats, which isn't so relevant here, unless you consider Lake Champlain, of course. Then stream and riparian habitats, the Atlantic salmon, brook trout, and wood turtle are all identified in here. And then kind of the upland forest and grasslands, the New England cottontail, golden-winged warbler, and the bobolink are all focal species. And for this year, it's mainly staying the same. The grants are between 75,000 and 300,000. Yeah, approximately 10 to 12 grants are awarded. We tend to get in 30 some proposals in general. It changes a little year to year. And then we do encourage one-to-one match to NIFLA funds with non-federal dollars. And I usually get questions about that. It's no longer required. So we just encourage people to do the best they can to get a one-to-one match. If you have more, it'll make you a little more competitive. And then nonprofit, state and local government, tribal organizations, and educational institutions are all eligible. So the RFP, request for proposals, just went out last week. So proposals are due on July 11th. And then we go through a whole bunch of technical review. I mean, we review at NIFWIF. Internally, we have subject matter experts from agencies, academia, sometimes NGOs. And then we work through all of those proposals and just try to come up with projects we think, we most want to fund. Then we go through a process of, we have to notify Congress and give them 30 days just to review what we're proposing. And then the NIFLIF board reviews grants for this program in early November. Actually, I think it'll be later November this year because of the election. So this year we have approximately 2 million available. We have a new partner, Silvamo, who's a forest products company, Forest Service, NRCS, Fish and Wildlife Service. For NRCS, we have working lands for wildlife funding that we can use on Northeast turtles and golden-winged warbler in the region. And then Zoetis Foundation. So these are the overall goals. I can just let you read those. A newer one is the hayfield management. when we looked and decided that bobolink would be a good species to have. So that's about changing the timing of harvest and trying to avoid so the birds can successfully breed. And again, so the focus is through all 6 New England states, and then the Lake Champlain, St. Lawrence, and Upper Hudson watersheds in New York. Then if you're interested in looking to do water quality, and you can demonstrate nutrient reduction, especially nitrogen reduction, we encourage you to apply to the Long Island Sound Futures Fund because they have quite a bit more money. And like I said, that goes all through the upper watershed of the Connecticut. All right. How about any questions yet? Or should I keep going?
You can keep going at this point. Thanks.
Oh, okay. So we have 3 primary priorities in the program. So restoring stream and riparian habitats. So restoring aquatic connectivity, either by removing dams or replacing or fixing culverts, restore riparian habitat along the streams. And then we've been increasingly doing more of the restoring of in-stream habitat, which is, well, goes by different names, but strategic wood addition or large wood addition. That's how it's usually referred to. And then importantly for you folks, reducing agricultural runoff and improving soil health are big parts of this. And then this is just a handy little cheat sheet to figure out where you might want to apply. So the upper Connecticut River Basin is really the key for you. I mean, you can, apply outside of the Connecticut River watershed, but it won't be as big a priority. So for water connectivity, the Northeast Forest and Rivers is your best bet. Riparian habitat, it could be either Long Island Sound or NEFRF. And that partly depends on, whether you can show nutrient reductions as part of your project. Large wood, yes, that's through Northeast Forest and Rivers. And then we encourage people to go to Long Island Sound Futures Fund for agricultural runoff, mainly because they have more money. But you could also apply to the Northeast Forest and Rivers program if, depending on the scale of the project. And then our second priority is improving upland forest health. This means working on public and private lands to improve management and trying to enhance age and structural diversity in those forests. So forest block planning is these large forest blocks serving as anchors. They're often public, and then private property owners around them can help them build a larger young forest restoration. So that's just one of the stages, and then outreach and technical assistance to producers, practitioners, farmers, etc. And then finally, grassland bird habitat. Um, so there is a focal area in the Lake Champlain Basin, but on the Vermont side. So if anyone's interested in looking into that, and like I said, it's really providing financial and technical assistance to farmers so they can adjust the timing of their harvest to give the birds a better chance. I mean, we're focused on bobbling, but it's also applicable to other grassland species. Okay, so all right, so that's a broad overview, and so some of the projects we've funded, we have been working with dairies in Vermont and elsewhere on kind of whole farm management. So things like conservation concerns, riparian buffers, exclusion fencing to keep livestock out of the stream, manure management. We now have we're negotiating a new agreement with Vermont NRCS to work on those dairy farms. So we're just getting that set up right now. So once that becomes activated, money's available, we'll be reaching out to folks, to grantees, and folks who can provide technical assistance to all these farms. And then there will also be we'll hire someone who will do kind of the outcomes assessment. So, but in Vermont, I mean, we funded quite a lot of aquatic connectivity work. And there are some priority areas you can see from the RFP, and where brook trout especially are important. And so Hall's Stream, for those of you familiar, the first and second branch of the White River, Millbrook, which I guess is Vermont and New Hampshire, as is the Vernon Dam watershed and the Manhan, but that's in Massachusetts. So I don't think you probably care, except in a most general sense. So we've also, we've done some culvert work in Vermont. We're just kind of starting to ramp up the ag work there, and we'd be interested in seeing, more proposals to work with agricultural producers on practices on their farms, especially those that benefit some of those species like, brook trout and, wood turtle is fairly new. So we're trying to, nobody came in with a proposal last year. So this year we're trying to really see if anybody will working in areas where there are wood turtle and, building buffers or even, strategic wood addition can benefit wood turtles and, other species also. So for those of you who haven't seen the RFP, you can go to the niflf.org website and search by conservation program and look for the Northeast Forest and Rivers Fund. And that'll give you a lot more detail. For those of you who have looked at it, I'm happy to answer questions about it and or, hear ideas on, what people are thinking if they're going to apply, that kind of thing. So, anything else, Ellie?
This is great. Thank you. Um, folks, feel free to go ahead and ask your question or type it into the chat if you have one. I won't dive into mine. I'll let other people ask some questions first.
Yeah.
I did have a quick question. You had mentioned, and I think I caught the second half of the sentence, so I don't know if you explained this or not, but you had mentioned a couple of other practices such as manure management and livestock exclusion, but
Yeah.
those aren't covered in this grant. That's another funding source that you're planning to release, or did I misunderstand that?
So yeah, general we are doing exclusion fencing through this program. If you have something, we're not really doing manure management, mainly because some of these practices are very expensive, and I think we can do that through this RCPP we have with
And
Vermont.
which of the three priority areas would something like livestock fencing come under? Is that improving aquatic habitat?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really under aquatic habitat. Yep.
Thank you.
Or
Okay.
stream and aquatic habitat. Yep.
Okay. Anything to do with floodplain restoration or
Well,
management or anything like that in here?
we have funded projects for floodplain restoration. The Connecticut River Conservancy, I know, I think they have one that's active still right now. So yeah, those are eligible, certainly.
You mentioned that there's a request for one-to-one match and that you'd like to see the matching funds not come from federal funds, but I also heard you mention that you've been working with NRCS and a lot of, that's usually one of the funding pieces in the puzzle of working with a farm. And I'm wondering if we have Vermont NRCS funds, would those not be encouraged to be included as match in a project?
So yeah, so federal funds we want to hear about. If you have, whatever equip money or whatever it might be, we want to hear about it in a proposal, just so we understand kind of the support behind the project. But those federal funds do not counter the non-federal matching funds. So, and part of that is that we handle a lot of federal money, and matching federal with federal is not often, not something people want to do. So yeah, we do want to know. And so, because you're right that, NRCS is heavily involved in, many of these issues and projects. But we generally can't match our NRCS money, say, with other NRCS money. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm also wondering about, is there any kind of non-eligible land types called out? Like, I'm thinking maybe older agricultural easements that there might be an opportunity to do, that comes to mind as a land base, that there could be some opportunity to do some of this work. And would those be eligible even though they're previously conserved?
Yeah, no, those would be eligible. Yeah, if something, not is in good shape as it once was, or just needs some restoration. I mean, I think it's actually a plus, working on easement lands because we know we don't have to worry about it in the same way, development and such. We don't have money to fund actual easements or acquisition, fee only acquisition. Just be clear about that. I mean, we'd love to, but it's just not. We fund most of that through our NIFWIF's Acres for America program.
Mhm.
So, which is nationwide.
And in terms of the proposals, I'm wondering, is this a type of program where you need to have your specific, every single individual project lined up and ready to go, or is it similar to an RCPP where you can have your priorities and vision and your, maybe your target area, and you're going to put it out to applicants? Yeah.
So no, you don't have to necessarily identify the specific places you're working. I mean, you can say we're intending to work in this watershed or catchment or whatever it might be. But no, I mean, it's nice if people already have things lined up sort of in a pipeline. But we don't require, and we do planning and design grants also, with the idea that if someone does one of those over 2 or 3 year period, and then they're set up to really move to implementation, folks can come back for that kind of money.
And another question I had was, is there a preference on, how much TA versus how much implementation money each proposal would include?
No, I mean, for us, I mean, implementation is really what we're after. So, I mean, yeah, providing some PA and outreach assistance is important, but really, I mean, in terms of the business plan and the programs, yeah, we're really looking for sort of on the ground actions that, are measurable. You can say, all right, we've restored X acres or reduced, amount of nitrogen, going into a stream or sediment.
I also was curious to ask you what some of your most favorite projects are that you've heard about, or proposals you've seen that you feel like really align with the goal of the organization.
Yeah. I think we have a bobbling project that we think is pretty cool. I mean, mainly because it's kind of the first one we're trying, but it's going to really show us, what are the opportunities to work with people that have hay fields, and how feasible is it to, and what do they need to make changes in their practices. I mean, personally, I'm particularly into like connectivity projects, restoring dam culverts and things. And which we've done. Well, we did some great work in Maine, I can say. And there's a project on the first and second branch of the White, but it actually, it's just getting going. So, what else? We've had some projects that are trying to work with, lumber mills and things to, create a market or kind of low quality wood products. And that's another one that, we're still testing out. But I'd say the bread and butter is really these habitat restoration, getting things back to place, so we do fund, invasive species removal because that's often a key, and
Mhm.
it's something we know that folks, have to go back and do repeatedly depending on the, but yeah, we like to see that first as a kind of prepping the, so these grants can last up to 3 years. So I'd say be realistic about what you think you can accomplish in that amount of
Yeah.
time, because
Mhm.
it'll go by fast. And like I said, sometimes it's more feasible to do a planning and design
Mhm. Thank you.
project. Yep.
That also made me think of another match question I had. With earlier RCPPs, I'm not as familiar with the most recent ones, but initially we thought match was the formal definition of match, but actually in those earlier RCPPs, it was significant contribution. And it was, I understand that it can't be a federal matching thing, and I'm just wondering for this RFP, is it match, or is it showing significant contribution of other funds that maybe those efforts are going on and they're a part of what is happening, but those funds might be matched to other funds, but they're a significant contribution to this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets a little tricky with match sometimes. But I mean, it needs to be directly spent on a project.
Okay, gotcha.
And there are limits on,
Mhm.
generally you can only match the one
Mhm.
source, or
Okay.
one source to one project kind of thing.
Mhm.
Because it gets a little complicated, but we're happy to answer questions about how to come up with match, what will be eligible. And you don't have to have match all identified when you apply. We want to get a good sense of what you're thinking and targets you may have. You'll get a chance to list, the
Mhm.
status of match, whether it's to be applied for, or it's been committed, or, you actually have it in hand.
Okay, great.
And I was going to say, if you want to see more specific projects, we have the grant slates up on the website for each year.
Mhm.
So that can kind of give you a sense too of the very, what we have funded over the last 6 or 7 years.
So
So
that's you go to nifwif.org.
yeah, slash, I think it's still, hold on, I'll find it.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's gonna close the, yeah, I think it's, yeah, well here, you can still see my screen. I can just
Mhm.
show folks. It might be easier. So here's our website.
Mhm.
Um, and just so you know, so strategy and results, this is where the business plans are. So if you want to review the Northeast Watersheds one, there's a request for proposal. So yeah, for the Northeast, I just can't remember. It was called New England. So I'm like, did it actually change in terms of the link? No, so it is North, yeah, nifwif.org slash Northeast should get you there. But that's the link there.
Great.
So, yeah, and so if you look So Northeast Forest and Rivers Fund, and then we have a summary, but there's the application information, which is where the RFP is. When we do a webinar in the end of May, we'll put up a recording. So right now it's mainly the RFP, but if you go into program information, you can see the grant slates back to 2015. Just so you can get an idea of what kind of things we've been funding. I'm just looking for, so we've been doing some dynamic forest block work in New York and Vermont. The University of Vermont and state agricultural colleges are doing a riparian buffer project, which you may probably know about or not. Then what else? Yeah, so as you'll see, one thing is a lot of buffers. We feel like riparian buffers just benefit so many different things in terms of species health and water quality. So you'll see that that's one of our primary. So grant slates, and I might as well say it now because if you're going to apply for a grant, I would suggest if you haven't, I would suggest you just set up an Easy Grants account, which is easygrants.nifwif.org, because that's how proposals come in, how we review them, and I find that people have said it's helpful for them to kind of get a little familiar with the system and see all different sections of the application, because there's a lot, and we know it takes an effort to put together one, submit it. So that's just sort of general advice, I guess.
Thank you. Great. Were there any other questions for John before we wrap up? Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time today. This was great, and I'll share this within the partnership and our steering committee, and be sure to. I sent the RFP out, but I'll send that again.
All right.
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, and let folks know. Feel free to reach out. I am the primary contact for the Northeast. Like I said, also anybody interested in the Long Island Sound Futures Fund, which maybe there are folks up your way along the Connecticut River who may want to do something. So yeah, just reach out. We can give feedback on proposal ideas.
Oh, great.
Try to guide you to what would be the most competitive proposal. So we've got.
That's good. That's good to know. We can have a conversation about it. That's great.
Yeah. So if you come up with sort of a draft of an idea and just want to run it by, I mean, I generally can take a look at those. I mean, as long as it's not the day before they're due, or even the week before is due. But
yeah, within reason.
Yeah. So let's just say the end of June, maybe, would be
Okay. Great.
the last realistic time to reach out. All right.
Right.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing what folks are thinking up there. What you might come in for in terms of a proposal this year. So,
Great. Thank you.
all
Thanks
right.
everyone for joining.
Thanks.